this game wasn't just hard, it got meta. So here's the story. Magneto reprograms the X-Men's Danger Room, their training area that uses holograms that they can fight, to make the holograms real and lethal. And he does this by literally transmitting a bunch of ones and zeros from a satellite. So it's your job to fight through several worlds created by the Danger Room until you can figure out what's going on, who's causing it, and take the fight to Magneto. And you do this by controlling some of the X-Men, specifically Wolverine, Gambit, Nightcrawler, and Cyclops. And one thing I do kind of like about the game is that each character plays a little bit differently. Nightcrawler has a really short jump, but he makes up for it with his teleport. Cyclops and Gambit, they have a double jump somersault kind of thing. Wolverine, because of his claws, has an extra long melee hit. Just an aside, I never really got how Wolverine got to be the fan favorite. I mean, I always liked Gambit, but that may be because he reminded me of Setzer from Final Fantasy VI, with the trench coat and the playing cards as a weapon and the constantly hitting on another female character. So as far as I know, Gambit never kidnapped Rogue. Or maybe he did. I don't know. I didn't read all the comics. Back to the video. And each of these characters sort of act as your lives. Each one has its own life bar, and if one of them dies, you can't use them anymore. So when you run out of characters, it's game over. And you get some cameos from like Iceman and Storm as like special powers. Now, you can switch between characters mid-level, but each level sets a limit on how many times you can switch. And each character comes with their own mutant power, which is the first problem with this game, that it has a power meter. So when you use Cyclops' Optic Blast or Gambit's exploding cards, you use up some of the meter. But with Wolverine, when you have your claws out, the meter just drains constantly. It puts a limit on how much you can use their mutant powers. And I didn't play Wolverine so I could punch things. And I didn't play Nightcrawler to not teleport around. The power meter refills over time, but still, I'm playing X-Men because I want to use their powers. And even the powers can be a little wonky. Like I said, Wolverine, just having his claws out is his power. He also has his healing factor, which refills his life very, very slowly to the point it's almost useless. Cyclops, his power works fine. He shoots his Optic Blast. Gambit throws his cards, but sometimes they just fly off in random directions. And actually, the best power is Nightcrawler's teleport, because you can use it to get through walls, and that actually lets you skip large portions of certain levels. There's even a level where using his power will let you skip an entire mini boss fight. And skipping parts of levels is a huge advantage in this game, because all of the levels are basically giant mazes with varying floors where you have to find a button or a switch to open a door or move a wall so you can get to the next part of the maze. There are lots of hidden paths. It's never really clear where you're supposed to be going, and because the camera doesn't show you very far below you, you never know where you're jumping down into. And in each maze is a mini boss and a final boss. And it seems like every single boss either has a gimmick or some sort of exploit to get past them. Like I said, there's one level where you can use Nightcrawler's ability to completely skip a mini boss fight. When you fight Sabretooth, there's an exploit that you can use to get him stun locked. Apocalypse can only be hit when he's really small. Juggernaut can only be hit in the head. Mojo can only be hit from behind, and he's massive and really hard to get around. And this is where you want to save all those side characters for help, because calling in Storm or Archangel could kill a boss in 2 or 3 hits. And because each boss and mini-boss has some gimmick or some trick to it, you have to figure it out through trial and error. And there are no continues or passwords in this game. When you game over, you have to start over from the beginning. And the levels just get more and more difficult as you go. If you play on easy, you don't even get to play the whole game. You only play the first few levels, and then Magneto mocks you for being a coward. But even on the harder levels, in later levels, you take more damage. In the beginning of the game, falling down a pit doesn't do that much damage. But in the later levels, you fall down a pit 2 or 3 times and you're dead. There are longer jumps. There's more difficult jumps over acid pits or with a ceiling over you, so you can't get that much height. And Nightcrawler's teleporting ability becomes almost necessary to get through it. And all this brings us to X-Men's most notorious level, the level I never got past as a kid. At the end of one level, you get to a computer and Professor X tells you that you have to reset it, but there's no button prompt to reset, because what you're supposed to do is actually reset the Genesis, something that I had never had to do in any game that I had ever played before. So why would I ever think of doing it? This is why X-Men for Genesis has the reputation of being one of the most difficult games. 4 lives, limited character switching, no continues, no passwords, wonky controls. Every boss has some sort of gimmick. You need to use exploits. You need to use level skips. You need YouTube tutorials or game facts, which weren't around at the time. But was X-Men a fun game? No. I didn't like any of this. This was a horrible experience. Don't play this game unless you really like a challenge and you really enjoy struggling for some reason. The controls are stiff. The power gauge is a pointless addition. The game feels pointlessly hard towards the end. I feel like this is a game that just lives on nostalgia. And if you've got those rose-colored glasses for this game, then by all means, have fun. I didn't, and I'm never playing this game again. I'll see you next time.